There's so many things I've realized that I don't actually know. And you start to think, well, where does the average person go to get some of the latest research around supplementation, nutrition, and training? It continues to be a little bit of a minefield.
I think there are a lot of really good products out in the market. There are also a lot of very bad products out in the market. Like, let's be honest.
Welcome to this week's episode of Lifts. How are you doing this week, Mo?
Well, I think we're going through a bit of a heat wave here in DC, but I'm doing well. I know we have a lot to go through today.
Yeah. I think everywhere. I'm going back to England next week. They're not having a heat wave there, but we're certainly having a kind of what they call, I think they call it Indian summer, and I've heard it's similar in New York as well. So it seems to be across the country at the moment.
No, I think it is, and we actually, it's funny because last week, and I know you can have hot and cold on at the same time, but I'm just one of those guys. Like, okay, summer's over. We're now in fall. I have the heat on, or turned it towards heat. But today it just got too warm in our house. I had to put the AC back on. But I'm enjoying it. We have some beautiful evenings in the fall, and it's perfect for like long evening walks until it gets too cold.
Well, I've been playing around with a few sort of health tips. One of the ones I've been experimenting. I was going to bring a little picture of it, but I've got this friend of mine turn me on to hostage tape. Have you heard of hostage tape?
I have. Don't tell me you tried it. I don't know what to think. I mean, yes, I've heard of it. I've seen it. Like taping your mouth. I don't know. Have you tried it?
Yeah, I'm on my second month now. In fact, a friend of mine told me about it. I got it. I watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube, which apparently says it improves your sleep, improves your breathing, makes you look more attractive as well, which is an interesting one. I'm not sure whether it's going to do a lot for me at my age, but so I told my daughter about it. She's 13, and so we both went to bed at night. We kind of put the tape on. I didn't think she would get through the whole night, but she actually got through the whole night. And I gave up after a couple of hours because I panicked that I'm going to maybe die because I couldn't breathe. So it took me 2 or 3 nights to get through the whole night with it. Once I'd done it the whole night, then I got a little bit more comfortable. But I have suffered a little bit from sort of waking up, dreaming and thinking I'm underwater and sort of losing my breath. So I had a little bit of a panic attack over that. But now I've done it, and it's actually good. Apparently, it stops you snoring, which I don't know, but I'm telling my wife I'm going to be a little bit more fun to sleep with because I don't snore. And yeah, it seems to slightly help. Apparently, also it puts you in more of if you're a little bit stressed at night, by breathing through your nose, apparently that puts you into more of a recovery mode than if you're breathing through your mouth. So I'll let you know. Certainly, if I start becoming a lot more attractive in the next few weeks, then you know what's caused
Then
it.
I know what's doing it. It's not the Ozempic. It's the hostage tape. Look, I mean, as a runner, I've been coached over the years to breathe through your nose and then out through your mouth, right? So breathing, there's so many benefits to nose breathing. And when you sleep, you naturally go towards mouth breathing rather, which is not as effective. It's not as safe because the nose can capture a lot of other particles, which you should not have in your body. But just the idea for me of keeping your mouth to go to sleep, it seems a little bit invasive. So I have to ask, you've been doing this for 2 months. Have your Oura averages gotten any better? Do you have more crowns?
Yeah, I am all over the place with mine. So it has been a little bit difficult to tell, and I think I need to give it a little bit longer. And I did go through a period where I sort of took it off at different times of night in the evening. So I think it's too early to tell, what kind of impact it's having on my sleep score or my recovery, or if it's sort of bringing me down quick enough over, bringing my heart rate down or my HRV up, which is things I'm looking for. So yeah, maybe we need to get someone on the podcast that can kind of really explain how those are correlated.
The science behind it. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. Obviously, it's popular with a lot of biohacker influencers. I think even Huberman's kind of talked about it a little bit. You're also, so you started this at the same time that you also kind of stopped drinking a little bit. So
yeah,
you're not drinking, you've got the hostage tape on, and right before this, you're talking about this interesting interview that you had with Jim Stoppani, I think, and it had you rethink about how you package your pre-workout, post-workout supplements and exercises. I know there's a podcast coming out, but what's new? What have you changed?
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. I interviewed Dr. Jim Stoppani about 5 years ago, and we prior to the pandemic, and I said to him, I said, "Look, you're a scientist." He was, I believe, he was at Harvard. He did a lot of research there, and then worked for some of the fitness magazines like Men's Health, and then he's got his own sort of supplement and nutrition brand now. But I said to him, I said, "What research are you looking at, and has there been any key things that have changed over the last 5 years that have got you to question, what you eat, how you train?" And there's some interesting stuff on the strength side. And when we spoke 5 years ago, one of the things that he said it's very difficult for us to really be very prescriptive when it comes to strength training because there's very little research being done. There's not too much money that is going into it, and so we still know very little about what it takes to build muscle. And I think that's still the fact today, really. But what he did say is that due to a lot of sports investment in athletes, there is a lot of more research coming through specifically as it relates to strength training. And there's some interesting things that we'll talk about on the podcast about how to basically get you stronger, which they seem to have been able to provide some solid research around that particular area, which I thought was quite interesting. And then the other one is just around things like protein. And we obviously are told that protein is important to build muscle and to improve strength, particularly as you get older. But there's so many different parts of protein in terms of protein timing, types of protein. A lot of these beef proteins that are on the market now that are almost like adverts of people chewing a bit of steak, but there's actually no meat in them. It's all things like cartilage and predominantly collagen. And so it was great because I certainly got a few tips that I'm putting into my own sort of health regime. But he also, as I walked away, I thought, wow, this is even more confusing because there's so many things I've realized that I don't actually know. And you start to think, well, where does the average person go to get some of the latest research around supplementation, nutrition, and training? It continues to be a little bit of a minefield from my perspective.
No, it's a lot. And I actually remember the episode that you had with him a couple of years ago. Because I remember I didn't hear of the protein. Well, I heard of the protein gem, right? Which is spelled JYM. But then I was actually shopping around for like a new protein. So I got it. It's a really high quality product. And of course, understanding his background. I mean, I think he interned for Joe Weider back in the day, right? He
Yeah,
like
that's
worked,
right.
he was
Yeah.
part of that whole early circle. So he's just had a lot of pedigree in the industry. But there is more and more coming out. I've since, and we were just talking about this, right? You're on AG1, which I was on too. But then we started working with Gainful, I think last year. So I got on Gainful, which is this personalized protein and something. So I switched from gym protein to Gainful, which I'm still on now. And then I switched from, and then they came out with the greens product earlier this year. So I was like, okay, well, so I got a free sample. So I tried it and it's got these flavored kind of things to it. It's good. So I spoke to them. They're going to send you some samples to try out. But you said it was hard. It'd be hard for you to switch from AG1.
The wait is over. Our new Escape Fitness catalog has landed. This is the essential guide to all of the latest product innovations that are shaping the future of functional training. Bigger and better than ever, this year's catalog is 190 pages, jam-packed with everything from eye-catching, bespoke functional training frames to some of the latest strength training equipment. So sign up today to receive the digital version today. So what are you waiting for? Go to escapefitness.com now.
Yes, because I interviewed Chris Ashendon, who started Athletic Greens, as it was
Mhm.
called, and felt as though I did my research on that particular product and asked a number of people, and it seems to be legit. And I think moving to a new product by reading the label, I'm just not educated enough to be able to know whether I'm moving up or down or what's in it and how that relates to me specifically. And it kind of got me thinking, and we had a chat over the weekend, that when it comes to some of these subjects, such as strength training or protein powders and what's in them and how they would work for different people and when to take them and the different types of protein, isolate and whey and casein that are
Concentrate.
in them, that all
Yeah.
have these different sort of absorption curves. It was almost like you need to get two or three experts that have slightly different views on a podcast or in an interview, and get them to thrash it out, and then at the end of that see what comes out of it, because I'm sure that you would get some idea of where they're all agreeing and the areas they don't, and if you can understand that, then you may, that you sort of know where to start, almost like from a safe perspective. And that's really what Jim said. He was talking about, look, there's a lot of things that he takes that he wouldn't put in his product, specifically because there's just so many variables that you have to factor in. And so if you really want to have a safe product, particularly if there's some new ingredients that have come out, the time it takes to understand how these things perform is pretty extensive. So that's why, unless you're probably somebody who wants to be at the cutting edge and take those risks with products, you need to really sort of stay somewhere in the middle.
No, I would agree. I think the most important point here is, as a consumer, and we are also not only like industry, business owners, and we're in the industry, but we're also consumers of the product and the modalities and all of that. At least, I mean, what you're telling me, obviously, is having this relationship with Jim, having the conversation with the founder of Athletic Greens, that relationship builds that trust, right? Hearing someone going through all the process and the work going towards it, just like me, right? I mean, when I spoke to Dean Kelly and the founders of Gainful and understood their process and kind of all the thought that and the science that went into their product, like, I think there are a lot of really good products out in the market. There are also a lot of very bad products out in the market. Like, let's be
Mhm.
honest, like, our industry is not regulated. There's a lot of bad stuff out there with just a great marketing label on it, and off you go. The key thing for a consumer is getting to know the story, the journey behind how the product was formulated, and if any cuts have been taken along the way. I mean, I look at examples like even the RX bar, which was this really kind of, I think they had, simple ingredients. You could kind of find them in your kitchen cabinet. They then get acquired, and now they have, it's a different product, right? So as companies scale and grow, the focus becomes less about, the actual ingredients, kind of more about margins and profits. So as consumers, maybe we should. I mean, look, if anyone out there understands the green industry very well, because you and I kind of had this debate, right? Like, you can't get up AG1. I'm like, I switched off AG1 and I'm perfectly fine. I actually stopped taking any other multivitamin or any other supplements as it relates to vitamins, because since switching to AG1 and now to Gainful, we should have them on. So if anyone's out there
Mm.
listening, who thinks they could come on and articulate, at least to us, what's in these greens product, and can they truly be a replacement for multivitamins? Or is all of it just rubbish? And are we just having like a placebo effect to greens and to multivitamins? I don't know. But I will tell you that protein absolutely makes a difference, because there are weeks that have gone by where I maybe have not been as focused on taking my protein supplements as much as I typically do. And I typically aim for 50 to 100 grams of protein supplementation on top of that, depending on my training load. It absolutely makes a difference. I recover better, I feel better, I'm stronger because of it. So I know on the protein side I could feel a difference. On the other stuff, I'm almost afraid to get off of it. But it's fun that we're in it. I want to talk about one other thing that you and I were texting about over the weekend. It's this new Oura nutrition tracking tool that I discovered over the weekend. You found it out a little bit earlier, but it's pretty cool. Like, they have the ability now to log your meals. And I've been doing it for a couple of days, but just taking a picture, and it's pretty darn smart. I even took pictures of protein bars, of lunches, of coffees, of all the things, and let's see what the impact is.
Well, that was one of the things that I didn't recognize. So I was looking at some of the other, because the controllers on Aura have changed quite a bit. So where is the where is the nutrition part then?
Okay, so the
Where is?
nutrition part is, if you open up your Aura app, you click on the hamburger menu on the top left, and you click on Aura Labs. So you got to go to Aura Labs,
Oh,
and
okay.
then
So,
you have to enable I think food tracking. I actually did a
Mm.
post on LinkedIn about it.
What are they? What are they giving you?
So they analyze the food, and the idea is to log the food. And I think, look, I'll get to the smart move about Aura on this, but the idea is to see if any of your dietary habits have an impact on your sleep initially. So are things they eat throughout the day going to contribute for or
Mhm.
negative to your sleep? But what I found out about this, in addition to all the things Aura's been adding, I open my Aura app now multiple times a day. They've added the stress monitor on it. They've added the AI chat tool on it, which I actually used when I wasn't feeling too well last week. And now the food thing. So anything you eat, you got to open up the Aura app. I mean, you think about apps that are striving for engagement. I'm opening up, like I never go to Facebook. I open up Instagram once in a while. I'm on LinkedIn. But outside of the work productivity apps like text messaging and email, Slack, it's Aura. Like I'm really in Aura a lot because, especially the last couple of days. So I think it's a brilliant move on their part because this is something that has increased engagement for users. I mean, for gym brands and wellness brands, they're trying to figure out how do I get my member or my subscriber to come into my product more and spend more time on my property, which is what should be the goal of any digital offering. My answer to them is, well, what are things that people do all the time that they need to open up your app for? Right? You wake up in the morning. How many times do you like jump to your Aura app within the first hour? Right? Most mornings you want to see how you slept, or then alerts you of when it's time to go to bed. They can alert you if you're stressed. I mean, they have become this kind of wellness ecosystem. So I'm really impressed by the work that Aura's been doing,
If you've
especially
got,
this past year.
let's say you've got an app, or like most of the many of the people probably listening to have, like, is there any ways that you are aware of, or where those things can integrate on some level, or is that an integration that could be created where um, you're taking advantage of what people are doing, and the importance of things like sleep and recovery, for example, or is that not quite there yet?
It's a really good question. So I think what happens, the simple answer is yes, right? And you could do it with an intermediary like Apple Health or Google Health, where Aura or other apps can write sleep data into Apple Health. And if you're a third party app, you could take advantage of that. You could absolutely can. I would suggest if you're not doing it, you could do it. In fact, anytime that we build an app, one of the first things we tell the brand is we are going to integrate you with Apple Health. We're going to integrate you with Google Health. We're going to pull in this data, and we're then going to build engagement based off of that user data. However, you can also build a direct integration to these brands directly. So you can integrate directly with Aura. You can integrate directly with Apple Watch or Whoop with other devices. The difference is when you go to an intermediary solution like an Apple Health or some third-party platform, they have to normalize the data because they have to accept, for instance, sleep data. Like Apple Health will have to get sleep data from their own Apple Watch product, from Beddit, from Whoop, from Aura, Ultrahuman, also all these other devices. So they normalize it, they modify the data. They might not include all the points that the actual capture might have. When you integrate directly with an Aura or one of these wearables, directly, Garmin, Polar, or whoever, you get access to the entire set of data. So you're able to do a lot more. So typically what I'll suggest is go with the Apple Health solution as a phase one. But then when you find out where a lot of your users are and what ecosystems they're in, directly integrate with those ecosystems.
Okay, great. Well, we got a few stories to cover this week. I'll kick off on the first one, which is about F45 and Pilates. I was first highlighted about this. I had a call with our friend Kevin Yates this week, and we were talking about some of the new boutique and fitness models, and we're hopefully going to get Kevin on before the end of the year. But one of the things that he told me about is F45, that I knew for having a very sort of basic circuit type of program with kettlebells and ropes and that sort of stuff. And what I wasn't aware of is that they've got this new Pilates model brand called FS8, and apparently it's doing extremely well. And I guess the question to you is: were you aware of this FS8? And is this just another brand taking advantage of this seemingly growing interest in Pilates?
Yes, I didn't actually hear about it until you mentioned it to me, and then I saw this Athletic article on it. I was aware that F45 launched VAR Pilates. They have a studio in New York, and I've had a chance to go see it. But I've not heard of FS8. But it seems really interesting. I think that they are trying to go to where the market is going and where the demand is going. And Pilates has been pretty hot right now. There's a lot of Pilates brands which are coming up, a lot of connected Pilates products, which are seemingly doing well. Solid Core just transacted with Al-Qaeda a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's a good move by F45, especially as HIT, I think, is going the other way, is probably having a bit of a reset right now.
Yeah. The next story then is F45 again teams up with Samsung, and it looks like it says Samsung Electronics teams up with F45 training to become the first functional training franchise delivering science-backed workouts on Samsung TVs. I wonder if they're going to be including Pilates in that lineup as well soon.
No, I think it's a good move. I mean, look, Samsung, LG, Panasonic just launched a new initiative. Everyone is trying to get attention for your attention, right? So they're all trying to say, how do we get you out of the phones into our properties and then collect data, and then hopefully, they'll probably repackage the data and resell it or surface your other content. So the fact that they can do fitness on here, I will tell you that, we built products for Samsung on their Tizen platform. It's a good function to have. One challenge, if anyone from Samsung is listening, that we've seen when we've developed a product for them, is that the promotion of it on the back end on Samsung's side has not always been great. So you've got to really come up with a good go-to-market strategy, because right now Samsung's all about adding logos and adding brands. So I'd be curious to know how this does. But Samsung has been trying to get a lot of health and fitness apps on there. But I think you've got to really pair that up with a good strategy. If not, it's kind of hard to get noticed across the noise.
Well, there's one more story that we've got, Vasa Fitness. And Vasa Fitness adds a boutique strength class to their HVLP offerings. Interesting that we're starting to see more people look at, are these strength studios going to be the new hit? I think we're starting to see that maybe a lot of the information that's coming out with strength training, some of the challenges that people have got with delivering strength training to the general population is potentially creating the need for these dedicated strength studios. I don't know too much about this, but it refers to the fact that they're going to offer a premium membership, bringing in a new group fitness offering to big box gyms. What are your thoughts on that one, Mo?
Well, I think this is a fantastic idea. And this is actually a trend that we've been seeing, not only in the brands that we work with, but even in the industry as a whole. Vasa has been one of these success stories in the HVLP space. They're in hyper growth mode right now. They've done a phenomenal job. So right now, HVLP is an experience that kind of sits between $10 a month and $39 a month. And really that $10, because of Planet, really driven by Planet Fitness, is really becoming $15 a month. So I think the charge is low enough for people to just continue to keep it. But where I really, what I really find interesting is that this 2.0 version of HVLP, or what a lot of people are calling HVLP premium or premium value. And this is really what Vasa is offering. This is where they're offering a membership at a bit more of a premium. So in this case, it's $44 per month. They're bringing in boutique, because boutique has much higher engagement, and they're hoping that this is going to help in retention. I think this is really where the market's going. We've kind of talked a lot about even brands like Choose Fitness and EOS Fitness. And I think EOS Fitness is in hyperscale mode. They're thinking about an IPO in the next 18 to 24 months. And they haven't seen a fitness IPO in some time. So it's going to be really good to kind of see, hopefully, one of these brands get there. But to me, what Vasa is doing, I think we're going to see a lot of other gyms do, in that a lot of HVLP gyms are saying, okay, number one, how do we compete with the Planet Fitness across the street that is going to be at $15 a month or $25 a month or somewhere around that? And they're really doing it by changing the game, right? They're building these incredible experiences. EOS is a good example. Vasa, Choose, all those other ones are great examples. This one, adding in a boutique class, I think is going to be a slam dunk. I think it's potentially a threat, for some boutique businesses. I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be as experiential as, let's just say, a solid core or Orange Theory, some of these. But for a lot of people, this could be more than enough for what they need. So I think it's a brilliant move for them, and they should be able to get a higher membership rate. And it's all about these recurring memberships.
Yeah, I was on a call this morning with someone, and interesting to hear that one of the things that you have in some of the low cost gyms is you really get a mix of a real mixed demographic, but you predominantly get a younger demographic in there for probably for obvious reasons. And what I didn't realize, and this was a sort of someone in their 50s that is in pretty good shape, telling me about his experience in this free weight area, where literally, one, there was a bit of not a scuffle, but a potential scuffle over who, moving the plates around that somebody was potentially storing for his next set and somebody taking them. And then the other example where he was in a gym and there was, literally a couple of guys came and they took the bench away from this older guy who clearly wasn't in a position to defend himself. And I think when you're in these areas, like there's a lot of testosterone flowing, and they're very intimidating. And I could certainly see that from a customer, an experience perspective, that if you don't have the ability to or the confidence to go into those areas, that you could have like some kind of intimidation, but also I think you get quite a bit of bullying with certain younger people in there. Is almost like, well, what are you doing in here? We're working out, get out of my way. So I think creating spaces like this will probably allow for people that want to do strength training but just don't feel as though they want to go into that space. I think it gives them an opportunity. We've worked with both Golds and Choose on a concept, or supported them in a concept where they've got these separate rooms. I think there's a little bit of a premium when you go into them, but they are a lot softer. The vibe is totally different. You are getting more women in there. You are getting a little bit of an older demographic, and I think the future of some of these spaces is really figuring out, either specifically focus on a particular demographic, or starting to say, well, how can you sort of segment some of the different needs of the people that want to do that type of training?
Yeah, I can relate to that too. And this is not, I guess I would be the older guy in this case, right? I think are we considered old people now, Matthew?
I think we are, yeah.
I think we are. No, but I remember, again, going to premium gyms. I'm talking about Third Space in London, Equinox in New York, Lifetime here in Virginia. But that same feeling is there regarding the young people and the older people. And I agree. I do think it's going more into these personal spaces. It's interesting. I think we both know someone in Vancouver called Emre who's got this, I think, safe sweat concept, which we've kind of seen with these. Maybe that's maybe he's onto something, right? Maybe that's something that we should consider. Something else I wanted to bring up because I've had some interactions more recently in London, where I wanted to go use something, and you get this intimidation factor. But I wonder if social media has kind of numbed the communication and interpersonal skills, because you and I have been training for a long time, since our teen years, and there's an etiquette at the gym. There's an etiquette when you're on a bike and you're running outside and all that. I feel like, I don't know, don't you feel like some of that etiquette has softened a little bit, or isn't really there when it comes to how you place your weights? I mean, think about this. Can you imagine taking your weights, getting ready for your next, and just leaving them there? We would never do that.
No, I do, like you go to a lot of gyms, and I do see that. I think there's a different attitude around, not in all, but a lack of respect of the equipment. We repair equipment that people trash, in some cases abuse, and so there does seem to be a lack of respect. Now, whether that, I go to another gym locally where the guy called Tom owns it, and he's the owner operator, and if you mess around in his gym, about it. Like, he doesn't stand any nonsense. But if it's a gym where maybe you've got a number of locations, I can see that if you've got someone on the front desk, little guy or girl, they're probably not going to go and put in those types of rules, or enforce those sorts of rules. So what can quite happen is you end up the members sort of take control of the space, and either get, if you're a person that doesn't stand up, then you just end up not going there. Or if you're a person that doesn't mind confrontation, you end up putting yourself into a position that you probably don't want to do, because it's like, well, I'm not gonna be treated like this, and then you end up in a really nasty space. So I think something that gyms have got to figure out, at least as a consumer that uses a lot of gyms. I'm aware of that. Whether it's to do with social media or not, I'm not totally sure, but it's definitely very prevalent.
No, for sure. Well, this is a fun episode. We covered quite a few topics. Any final thoughts as you're going into, I think, a week of travel next week, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be I'm going to be working on a sleep schedule. I've got a few potions that people have sent me. So my goal is to go to London, figure out how to sleep on the plane, get a good rest so I can wake up and be ready to go when I arrive in London next week, and not get put off too much by the jet lag, and then come back and be perfectly healthy without catching anything. That's really where my focus is going
That's
to
the
be for
goal.
the
Well, are
next
you
few
going to
days.
be using any hostage tape on your flight to London?
I was thinking about it. I'm wondering what people will, what people will do as they look at me with my mouth wrapped with black hostage
Maybe put a
tape.
mask if some people still travel with the mask on. So you got the mask and they
I
want
think
to
I'm
see
going
the
to give
tape.
that one a go.
I think the mask might be less awkward than the tape. The tape might be
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
the
yeah.
mask might be less awkward than the tape. Yeah, I mean,
So what about you, Mo?
well, I think I'm having a bit of FOMO this week because, and you and I've talked about this. I think there are 5 conferences that we've been invited to this week. We're not going to any of them, unfortunately. There's Dubai Active, there's the HCM conference happening in the UK. You've got an URSA or HFA conference happening in Barcelona. You've got Fitness Tech Summit, ALS conference in Vegas, and we've got the Health Summit also happening in Vegas. So I'm having a bit of FOMO, but I think with all the stuff going on, I'm really having fun seeing everyone's social media posts and LinkedIn posts about what's happening at these conferences. So in a way, I'm kind of experiencing it, through everyone's eyes. So that's been a lot of fun. But other than that, no, I'm looking forward to a vacation next week. So when you're in London, when we're recording next week, I'm going to be in Mexico on a family vacation. So hopefully we'll both come back refreshed, energized, rested. I'm not going to be using any hostage tape, however.
You'll
That might
come
scare
back
the kids.
refreshed.
I'll
You'll
come
come
back
back
refreshed.
refreshed. I'll come back worn out, no doubt.
Well, I'll speak to you in a couple of weeks. Good
Yeah.
luck with the hostage tape.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening to this episode. If you've got any comments about hostage tape or strength training areas or anything that you'd like to add, then please go to the lifts page on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear if you've got any interesting things to say, or if you'd like to be a guest in any area, particularly if you are interested in giving us a lowdown on some of these supplements. I think would be quite useful to know. And if not, we thank you for your support and for listening to this week's Lifts podcast.